It was not meant to be collateral for loans to build things. I agree entirely with Dr. Cutler. In fact, I think capital improvements during this time is even more important. It continues jobs, it continues progress in the city. But I hope nothing else this shows us that we ought to consider pretty early putting a line item into our budget that each year dedicates a certain amount of money to our Budget Stabilization Fund in the event that we experience days like this, which I do believe are rainy. You know, minus a natural disaster, which could also be a recurring cost, I can't really think of anything that we could say will absolutely only be a one-time expenditure. I understand the argument that the administration will make against going in that fund. I acknowledge it. It makes sense. If I was in your all's position, I would say the same thing. That said, the two effects this would have on the city are, first, it could downgrade our bond rating. The result of that would be a quarter-of-a point interest increase on debt. So if we were to borrow $20 million, that would increase our interest payment $50,000 or $60,000, which to me, in interest for $20 million, that's very, very minor. And hopefully we can get that debt rating up when the recession's over. And the second issue is the fact that this is one-time money for recurring costs. But I don't think we should be scared to use that money because we may be in this situation next year. I think that, that this tax money is for times like this. What I'm going to propose is that we pull $1,907,867 out of the Budget Stabilization Fund, and I will line item briefly what that would be for. $202,867 will be used to keep Washington Park and Fallon Park pools open. For many children, this is their only source of summer recreation, and I do think it will keep them out of other activities that might have unsavory results. $60,000 will be for the bookmobile. I do think that there are elderly and the disabled in the city who rely on the bookmobile to get there or to have access to the libraries, and I think that's an important service. $25,000 will be to keep the libraries open 5 days a week for the reasons that the speaker earlier mentioned and that I agree with. The other money will be $600,000. We'll keep 20 teachers' assistants who are all accredited, who are all slated to be the next wave of teachers in Roanoke City Public Schools, and who I think we should avoid losing. $120,000 will be to keep 2 guidance counselors. This is particularly important to the most vulnerable children in the city. $300,000 will allow our summer school program to maintain enrichment, technology, and life skills courses. I think this is particularly important because often children leave school in June, and by the time they get back in September, the brain drain has occurred, and they've lost a lot of what they've learned. I also think that it's important to keep a summer school program beyond only remedial and required classes. And the final $600,000 will enable the Roanoke City Public Schools to fill 10 elementary school slots that are going unfilled due to attrition. Council, I think, very boldly helped the schools, in this case, keep 20 elementary teachers in their positions, but there still are 10 positions that will remain unfilled because of attrition and because of lack of funding. And I believe that is important to the future prosperity of the city to make those funds available. I want to say that I completely understand any of my colleagues who do not support this. I don't want to fault them. I don't want anybody to think that anyone is a bad person for not. This is my belief, this is my opinion, this is what I'm proposing, and all I ask is my colleagues to consider this proposal. Thank you. This money, and again, respectfully disagreeing in views, I do believe that this is an emergency of our school system. I believe that if we were Fairfax or Arlington and had high-performing schools, that it would be far less likely that I would ever recommend going into the rainy day fund. It's difficult for me to do that now because I understand the purpose of it. But that said, I do believe this is an emergency of our school system. I think the programs that are absolutely necessary to a population of students that 70% of which are on free or reduced lunches is important. And again, those are why I believe that this is one instance where we are in an emergent situation that calls for the use of reserve funds. And I respectfully submit that to my colleagues, and I don't know if it's appropriate how we handle that, whether there's a motion, I don't know if it's worthwhile at this point, but, you know, I don't know how we proceed with that.
The motion is always appropriate, or without objection, it can be referred to budget study for further consideration. Either way.
As long as we have a chance just to maybe talk about it again, I would be pleased with that. Thank you.
Then without objection, it will be referred to budget study.